live on YouTube. Bada bing, bada boom. Trying to make it, as painless as possible to do. Bada bing, bada boom. Trying to make, all right. I did Facebook Live last time. I'm going to try YouTube this time. Unfortunately, I can't do both, which is a real bummer because I'm willing to, and I don't see why I shouldn't be able to. But this is kind of nice because YouTube, I think there's obviously way more subscribers on YouTube than I have friends on Facebook. A lot of my friends on Facebook are family and high school people that I probably don't even want to even know that this is happening or join something like this. So that's good. I got a much more robust chat in the Facebook thing now. So that's good. A lot of people there. I hope you're able to call in from Facebook for the people that are there. I'm not sure if you can. If you can't, then go to my Facebook or Twitter and you will see the link to call in. There's a phone number too, so you can do that. And I'm looking at the Zoom chat. I guess I'll bounce back from one to the other. I see also, if you want to talk and you're in the Zoom chat, it's better to be in Zoom than YouTube. I understand if you see it on YouTube, you're like, oh shit, it's going live. All right, great. But hop over just so you can be more involved. At least I think you would be. And towards the bottom on your screen, you should see something that says raise your hand. If you want to get involved here, raise that hand. I am looking for people. I mean, how are we doing, guys? Maybe you got something to say. Maybe you were MK Ultra. Maybe you saw someone setting fires in California. I don't know, but I want to hear about it. If you got anything to say. I don't know why I drank whiskey straight last time. This time I have more like a White Russian / Irish coffee. Again, for someone who has bad allergies, I guess milk is a good choice for live streaming. But hey, I didn't think that far ahead. Someone else is drinking whiskey tonight. All right. Keep the calories low and the drunk high, I guess. All right. We got hands raised already. I love it. It seems like there's more people here for sure, especially when you factor in Facebook, because I believe that's completely separate. All right. We're going to go with some hands. Good. There's more than one hand raised. Keep them raised. And I'll just, we'll cycle through. But Jeb Dasoff, make these easier for me to figure out what you're saying here. But Jeb, you're muted. That's on me. We're going to unmute you.
I'm unmuted.
You're unmuted, man. How we doing?
Gorgeous. Hey, excellent. Thanks for having me first.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't have it any other way.
So, how's your night?
Can't complain.
That's great. We're both on the West Coast.
Yes. Awesome, man.
I'm boots on the ground here in Oregon.
Cool.
Yes. Watch out for the regulation that is called legalization.
Are you one who is a little skeptical of legalization, that it's a plot to get us all filled with Monsanto chemicals?
It seemed to have already taken effect here, the legalization process. Not only is that fact that you pointed out a reality, most likely, but also just they took something that it's been great our whole life, and they made it not as fun, man.
Why is that? Why do you say that?
It's just now it's a 9 to 5 for people now.
But isn't that great for people who are really into weed culture and didn't have the option to make it a 9 to 5 before? I mean, if you're at a retail counter, who cares what you're selling? I mean, I've been there, but at the same time, I know a few people who were really struggling to find a place in the system, and now they kind of have one as either a grower or a processor or what have you?
It has helped a lot in that way economically for a lot of different people that, yeah, maybe they would be doing something much more lame. You're right.
Look, I want to be breaking the law too, by all means. And I do have concerns about the GMO weed thing, but I think people who really understand weed culture know that it's about the small grows for the most part. Anyone can do it. Like, I've grown weed before. Obviously, I didn't have Monsanto chemicals in mine, and they probably are going to take over a decent chunk of the market, and the masses just don't understand. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of tourists who come to these states that have legalized and they're just getting whatever. But if you're smoking all the time, you probably have a source that's off the radar and out of Monsanto's hands. At least I hope.
True that. True. Yes, I heard a likelihood made to, or similarity put between the prohibition of alcohol and the herb as well. And so I think in the time of prohibition, it was seen that for a while, individuals felt, and like you just expressed, for maybe over a decade before Budweiser and then finally took over. And so, yeah.
I get that. Also, you know, when you're talking about the weed situation, we have to factor in how many people have criminal records now, how many people are still locked up. And so any potential problems that we encounter because of legalization, I think they're dwarfed by the positive aspect of not keeping people in cages.
Are they, some of the people unjustly put there are still there, correct? Nobody's been exonerated yet, have they, from this movement?
That's kind of true. I do hear talk in California. It's supposed to be on the ballot. And I've heard, I think in Oregon, it was supposed to be on the ballot. I guess it's just one of those things where at least if it's legal, it stops happening. And I do think we should do the work to retroactively let these people out if they were nonviolent, and we'll see, but at least it's a step in the right direction, kind of.
True that. Agreed, Greg Carlwood.
I'm doing what I can.
I was wondering on the Monsanto end of the thing, how will we know when it started to infiltrate? You're just going to end up with a seed, and they're going to want to control it. You'll have to always get a new seed like the corn or something.
Well, yeah, if you're talking about the seed aspect, that is a possibility. But I just think, again, there's so many growers out there. A male weed plant produces so many seeds to really get that toothpaste back in the tube would be difficult. But my concern would more be the chemicals, putting glyphosate or glyphosate. I always say that backwards.
Yeah,
glyphosate.
correct.
Putting that on stuff, you know, having Monsanto buy smaller organic chemical companies and kind of co-opt them, that kind of stuff happens. So I'm more concerned about what's being sprayed on the weed rather than seed control. Although 30 years from now, we might be worried about both.
Correct. I think that the seeds, and Monsanto, of course, will go after and sell tons of them to the people that go already in contract with them to even start their farming effort. Whoever, some government people that are already ready to do it in huge mass quantities. We've seen a little bit of it here, but
I could be wrong, but I was either passing through Oregon or passing through Washington, and one of them was like very heavily controlled. There were only a couple of places, and it was one of those situations where they legalized it and only gave the stamps out to a handful of buddies. And so it's definitely controlled by a cannabis cabal. And and it was actually very expensive. I want to say it was Oregon, but going to Vancouver and back. I can't remember which state it was, but obviously some are doing better than others.
Yeah, interestingly, growing up in Kansas, of all places, near where I know you're from, we were able, somebody made me aware when I was young, you could get a drug tax stamp for your, I mean, on the drug, anybody I guess could look it up online now. I did, it was still there and active and everything. So it was Kansas drug tax stamp program, basically by weight or by volume or by whatever dose was they'd sell you a stamp that was made, it said in the paperwork, implied for the dealers of these substances, so that you could put that stamp on a container, and that everything that went through there at that dosage or weight or whatever it was, and they had a price for everything. Wet, domestic, dry, domestic. It was pretty amazing. And in that Capitol building in Topeka, where you had to go to get those tax stamps, which I think you can today, they have cannabis leaves embroidered in the work around the top of the dome of the Capitol building on the inside. It's beautiful.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right,
So,
we're 10 minutes in. There are a couple other hands up, but I wanted to give you a chance if you had any final thoughts, or maybe we didn't even get to why you called. I'm not sure.
I had 3 things, actually. There was a ghost, a Sasquatch, and a UFO. So maybe we have to pick one. So I won't get anybody else's way.
Let's see. I want to try this. In both chats, I'll be looking. Press 1 if you want to hear the ghost story. Press 2 if you want to hear about Bigfoot, and give me a 3 if you want to hear that UFO story. We'll give people a second to throw that out there, because
1, 2, 3.
What people would rather hear. People want it all. I mean, we can probably.
Yeah, I can jam through them.
Run through them.
We're pretty concise. So when I was young, I would cut between neighborhoods in Kansas on my motorcycle, and there was just a little alleyway late at night. One night, every time I rode down this thing at late at night, I would get the hair stand up on the back of my neck a little bit. I always was concerned a little bit going through there. I almost felt like maybe it's because somebody gonna, maybe it was a physical predatory threat, like a person gonna rob me or something. Anyway, nothing like this ever happens. A really calm suburban area. It was all good. One night I pulled onto that sidewalk, looked down, and about the point in the middle, there was an apparition floating there, a white one, legless, like a woman with a dress flowing, like you would think, like from a movie. And it was really scared the shit out of me. I jammed it into gears, put it on its side, cruised out of there, went the other way. I don't know that I went through that little corridor very often thereafter, but it was just absolutely as real as a lot of other real experiences that we have, Anyway, and I was young to boot, so maybe I was only just smoking a little bit at that point, but probably definitely that night. But anyway, so we go into Sasquatch a little further down the line. Maybe actually this Sasquatch story was prior to that, so maybe a few years before. I would visit my grandparents in Alabama. In the Alabama River, we would do jug fishing for catfish. I don't know, everybody might not know what jug fishing is. You got to tie like a foot of line to an empty bleach bottle or something my grandmother would have used, like a quart bottle empty. Put a hook on there, bait it, and you just throw them all in the water and drift down the river. When the fish come, they start bobbing up and down at night, and you can go and net them up. So it always happens at night. We're floating down the river. You got to use a big spotlight, and I used to like to play with it, of course, when I was a kid. So I'm looking around on the banks. My uncle and my grandfather are bent over. They're doing something different. I looked on the bank with the light and saw a large, light-colored, what I thought was just a huge ape. And it was moving through thicket effortlessly and super fast without making any noise that you would have, there's no way to have believed that I was watching it. So I kept the light on it just as long as I could till it got just a little bit out of sight right along the bank in front of us. Turned to my grandfather and my uncle, wanted to say something and realized they're going to, well, what are you talking about? Monkey out in the woods. Better watch for snakes out here. Come on now, get that light over here. So anyway, that that was that story. And that was later. I described that, what I'm calling Sasquatch there, hominoid or whatever, like Lloyd Pye would say. But I think it was during that Lloyd Pye presentation I saw long ago, that really good one, his main one. I don't know, nothing is true, whatever. Lloyd Pye, it's great. It's about the hominids. And he exactly described the one in the southern state regions of what I seen, that exact hominid. So that was kind of nice confirmation later,
Yeah.
100 years later. And third, the UFO. I lived in Hawaii at one point. I woke up for no apparent reason at 4:20 exactly. I looked at the clock and think, wow, man, it's 4:20. I'm going to go out in the back and pee off the back step. And I could only see a little patch of sky. What I observed coming into view was a little triangular craft that did have the lights on it, like maybe we would put on a craft, like a red and a green blinking light of some kind.
Mhm.
I was looking at it, and then I realized I could hear the breaks on the beach, the breaking water on the beach, maybe a mile away, and this thing was right overhead, flying.
Silent.
Silent.
Wow.
So I later heard on giving horseback tours, I would say stuff like this in Hawaii, and at one point a guy did take me aside and he said, "We have those. That's one of ours." And he wouldn't say it in front of everybody in the group, right? So he took me aside. I had already described it because I would always describe it to see if maybe that would happen one day. And yes, sure enough, the guy, he said, "We have those. They're quiet. They're probably running them all over the place at night to take every kind of picture of your area.
Wow.
Infrared, heat, or yeah, all the elevations, all the different things." Anyway,
Yeah.
those are my. So it ended up not being an ET. Dang it.
Well, dude, that just reminded me. About a week ago, I had a maintenance guy come through, and he sees my car, which has a big higher side chat stain on the back window. I have a buddy who works in decals, and so he blew me up something, and we put it on my car. And the guy's like, "What is this?" And I have to tell him, and he's like, "Oh, well, check this out. My grandpa, he died a few years ago, but even up to being on his deathbed, he talked about when he was in the military." When he was, I guess, around my age, about 30, 35, he was in he was in the Navy. So he was out on the water on some kind of ship, and a bunch of orbs came flying in, went under the ship, and came out through the water like the water was air and just flew off into the distance. And that's the only details he really has to the story. And he maintained it his whole life, apparently. And this happens to me all the time. If someone just, when you meet someone new, you ask, "What do you do?" Sometimes we go down that road, or they see the thing on my car for whatever reason. And when you tell people you host a conspiracy and paranormal podcast, almost everyone has a story. And it's ridiculous because they might not consider themselves conspiratorially minded or into the paranormal, but they know a guy who knows a guy who saw some shit almost every time.
And interesting, since you brought up conspiracy, of course, the reason I started to enjoy your show, which I really do, man, I really do appreciate your work. Thanks so much. You're real helping out a lot, man. But in 98, in my restaurant, my friend hand me, it was a Rastaman too. Yeah. So sometimes I don't think we get enough props to this crew just for both their truth seeking, the ganja, everything, the medicine, the food, right? It's pretty, anyway, hands me a videotape, says, the biggest secret is the one to watch. It was like in 98. And it was what early David Icke presentation. Usually, like other times in life, when I'm about to do something like this, I know it's going to be heavy. I adequately get prepared. In this case, it was LSD.
Ooh.
First David Icke video, 98, LSD. I had to turn it off about halfway through, and I just said, I don't need to see any more hard evidence, man. I knew there was something going on, right? So.
Right on. Well, cool, man. Hey, we made it the first 20 minutes. I feel like I don't know how this works. Like, I'm not used to the radio. On the radio, you're flipping through calls left and right. I just get to talking, and this is how it goes. But hey, I'm going to get to somebody else. But what a way
Thanks,
to
Greg.
off, man. Good talking to you.
Much love. Aloha, brother. Ciao.
That was a good one. That was a quality call. Also had really good audio quality. Can't go wrong there. Whoops. All right, let's see. We got another couple of hands up. Let's just go in this order. I hope it puts them in the order in which they raise their hand. A cult fan, someone I have talked to many times. Oh, it says that allow to talk is not available, a cult fan, because you're using an older version of Zoom. That is a bummer. Maybe you can update Zoom and then I'll hit you back in a minute. Didn't expect that to even be a thing. Jonathan, nice, easy name. Jonathan. So let's see.
Hello, Greg.
Hey, what's happening, my man?
How's it going, man?
Can't complain. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Just hanging out on a Tuesday night, you know, just drinking a little drink and smoking a little smoke.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, man. I just wanted to stop by and say I really love your show, and I really love what you do. And it's been a long 5 years of like starting to wake up to how the world is, and you know, just trying to seek out my truth and everything. And you know, I've gone through many different shows and books and all this different stuff, and I really like the guys that you have on. It's just a wide variety of types of topics that I would have never even thought of or heard of or found, and I just want to say thank you for that, man.
For sure. I do what I can. I feel like, you know, I wanted to do what I love, and this is the kind of stuff I love. People do rag on conspiracy folks, whether it's book writers or lecture givers or podcasters. They rag on them for making money, but it's like the news makes money to sell bullshit. I mean, can't we make some money going after things that are more interesting or closer to the truth? I mean, we all have to do something. So, I mean, I feel like it's a lot better than selling video games to kids.
Exactly. Yeah, I've thought about trying to start up a show myself.
For sure.
I just, you know, I just got to take up some time to do it. I work like 60 hours a week or more, you know, busting my butt on a forklift. But, you know, it's, you know, I got to do what I got to do for right now. I'm just saving up money and trying to figure out what my part in the play is, I guess, you know.
Hey, there's no shame in the buildup. You know, everybody is doing something to build, but the problem is when you don't have an end goal or you don't know why you're doing what you're currently doing. I couldn't stand doing what I was doing, except for the fact that I had some glimmer of hope. I was doing a podcast. It was early, but you know, at least it's something I can say I'm working towards. It's very hard when you're just like, man, what am I even doing this for? How long am I going to do this? I understand it is very hard, but I think there's a lot of creative ways to get ahead. I mean, even if you don't start a podcast, I have a friend who wants to DJ, but he's like, how am I going to DJ in this super saturated market? Well, you can start a YouTube channel, start vlogging every day, talking about how you mix music. You'll gain some kind of following. EDM is super popular. And then you sell your tracks on iTunes for $1. Maybe 1,000 people will buy a track like that for $1 a month. I mean, that's money in the bank. My wife has just started woodworking and she made me these pretty badass coasters. I don't know if anyone can really get a feel for that, but I mean, this is just practice for her. So I'm really excited. Just find some way to craft something. We're bred to consume. Give us something to consume, man.
Well, it's funny that you say that your friend is like wanting to be like a DJ and stuff, because like that's been my like dream since I was like 14. I like have started to make some songs and everything. Just hard to devote a lot of time, and like you kind of like you said, it's just so freaking saturated right now. I mean, I like started to see it blow up so much more throughout the past 9 or 8 freaking years. It's just it's like, you know, hard, and plus there's like so many tastes and so many different ideas of what kind of music that I want to focus on. But I mean, right now for me, it's just working on my grind, just working a lot and saving money, because that's one of the things that I wish I could have told myself when I was like 17, starting my first job, is like, dude, save some money, like put something to the side, and you're going to be much happier, and you're going to be less freaking stressful, and you're going to be out of debt and all that shit. So right now, I'm just trying to get my foot going for the next year or so, just working a lot and making as much money that I can, just chucking a bunch of boxes. But that it's the synchronicities, it's funny that the first thing you said is my friend is wanting to be like a DJ and wanting to start a YouTube channel, and then that's like what like I like want to do. So I thought that's funny.
Well, I'd say it's easy to also think about like how saturated it is, but there's somebody, I say this all the time and I always forget the guy's name, but there was someone who wrote a book that's premise was built around, you only really need 1,000 true fans, being defined as somebody who would pay like $50 a year for whatever you do. So if you can find 1,000 people who will pay $50 a year for whatever it is you do, that's 50 grand a year. Not a lot of people are making 50 grand a year. And it's when you think about it in those terms, the internet is such a huge sea of millions of people. If you can just catch the attention of 1,000, my wife was she wasn't my wife at the time, but she was very concerned about hitching her wagon to a conspiracy podcaster, because she really was like, how many people are into this? This is a small market. Are you sure you want to do this instead of the comedy podcast you were working on? And it's like, yeah, I mean, it is a small market. And that's, I think, another thing. Like, I've been able to do it. So maybe you should think about it that way. EDM, you look at even a mediocre EDM song has got 10 million views on YouTube. Find a way to harness that. Get in that stream.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. That really does mean a lot for you to say this stuff to me,
Sure.
But it all falls on myself, I just got to work hard. And that's something that I want to speak for like everyone else here too, as well, or to them is, whatever your dream is, whatever your goal is, just focus on it day by day. And it will come if you work hard and ask the universe, and sorry, I'm just freaking nervous, I'm like a big fan.
There are 300 people here, which is by far more than you've ever been in one of these. I mean, you're basically talking to a small auditorium.
Just that's another thing too, is I have like a speech impediment, so it's I'm trying to take.
You're doing great, man.
Rest. Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
So another thing I would just say is, like, you kind of alluded to this too, but if you're getting down about that day job, just consider it the fuel for your fire. I really liked saying that to myself. And when I wanted to just walk out the door, I was like, nope, if you leave this right now prematurely, you're going to give up that. And I don't know, that's the way to look at it, but always have something in mind. And it seems like you do. But hey, man, there are a lot of hands up, way more than usual, but I want to always give people a chance for some parting words, or if there was anything else you wanted to throw out there that we didn't get to.
Probably the next time that you do this, I will try to raise my hand one more time, because I like to share a story. It's how this journey started of, like waking up and everything. It's like pretty long. It's like a trip I had. That's how this all started, is I didn't really think anything of demons or like entities or anything like that, or the New World Order. It all came to me through like a trip. I don't really want to take up a lot of time, but maybe the next time that you do this, I'll be like the first one to raise my hand, and you'll see my name, and I can just spill the beans for like 10 or 15 minutes or something.
Okay, cool. Well, that was a good elevator pitch, a good trailer to get us excited.
Awesome, man.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much, and I look forward to it, man. Thank you.
All right, man. Take care. Good luck.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Jonathan, doing his thing. All right, we're gonna try a cult fan again. He is telling me in the chat that he's done plenty of shows with Zoom. That's not the issue. For some reason, it's saying that you need to update. So I hope you did. We're gonna try it again. No, it says allow to talk is not available because a cult fan is using an older version of Zoom. Choose. Oh, hold on. There might be another method. I think we did it. It's you just have to be used as a panelist instead. It's these terms that they use. A cult fan. You are on the air.
Am I on now? Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. It seems like my
Everybody's
Zoom
hearing
version's fine enough then. Hi, Greg. How are you? It's good. I haven't seen you since 2017.
Yes, you were at
Gordon White
in LA.
Yeah, and we had a good end to that weed story. I know you tried to get us some cannabis.
Did I? I'm not. Did I wasn't able to do that.
Yeah, you weren't able to rise to the occasion, but we did have a Uber driver who ended up being cool enough to bring 4 of Rune Supers over to a clandestine cannabis place where we ended up getting cannabis at.
Badass.
No, it was really badass because we were like, we're just a bunch of stupid idiots and we're not going to get you in trouble and just bring us to some weed place.
Didn't we smoke weed at that event though? We didn't have. Are you sure we didn't have any?
Hashtag no, we didn't, dude.
Huh.
Just like how my Zoom suddenly works.
It asked you to make you a panelist. I guess it's some different term. It just wasn't working in the conventional way.
All right, sorry, bro. I'm glad you got your thing ordered.
4.0.
Now we're here. Now we're here.
You need
So,
4.0.
Thank you for whoa, throw your Bruce Lee-ish. I got my Bruce Lee, you got your Bruce Lee. This is good. So yeah, I guess I'm calling in to ask what you drinking tonight.
It is whiskey and cold brew coffee and some vanilla. It's kind of a White Russian / Irish coffee kind of thing.
What kind of whiskey though?
Maker's Mark.
Good man. All right. So yeah, no, a couple of things. I want to give it a shout out to A Culture, the podcast A Culture with Ryan Beverly. It's a good thing. I think you two would have a great conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I mean, you want me to have a specific thing that I'm supposed to talk about, or
Well, usually it's about maybe personal insights or some kind of local conspiracy or experience. I mean, you're an occult fan. Have you had any strange occult experiences? Hit us with your most potent strange experience.
well, I'll save my most potent for somewhere else, but I'll give you some other stuff. So, for example, wiggly eyes. So the point is that like there's a origin story to a cult fan, and a cult fan comes from. Maybe you haven't played the Final Fantasy series, but a lot of people have.
I've dabbled.
Which Final Fantasies have you dabbled?
7, 8. I think I then tried the one where you play as Lightning, and then I played the one where you drive in the car, one of the more recent ones, and I just realized that I don't have time for those games anymore in my life.
Yeah, I haven't played them forever, but like I miss them. It was a fond memory of when I was a teenager. And so, yeah, basically you did play Final Fantasy 7
Mhm.
and so 8 is actually the origin of a cult fan. It was a kind of secret thing that you might not have noticed. So what you have to do is you find these 4 different magazines in Final Fantasy 8, and they're known as a cult fan magazine.
Interesting.
Yes. So anyways, so in these magazines, they talk about aliens, UFOs, different kinds of poltergeistic and alternative ideas. It's basically a penultimate understanding of this alternative community, including the number 666 and a object known as Solomon's Ring. Yeah, well, it gets way deep, dude. We'll talk some other time. But the point is that, dude, I don't make this stuff up. I believe that we choose the lives that we enter into so that we have the experiences we need so that we can evolve in the manner that our souls are necessitated to.
Mm-hmm.
My point being is, so get this. My dad, last week was entered into Freemasonry at the age of 69.
Hmm.
If you know gematria, then you understand that anything plus 9 is going to become itself again, right?
Sure.
Okay. Well, let's just go with that.
Go
So
on.
my grandfather was 33 when he entered Freemasonry. I was 33 when I entered Freemasonry. And so if you add 3 and 3, that's 6. My grandfather, my dad 6 and 9, so that's 6. And I am 33 when I joined is 6. So it joins with the Freemasonic kind of idea of numerological importance, but more importantly, it joins with the importance of the Gestalt, which makes your body, my body, and all other bodies.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, we're all connected. So the point is this: in Final Fantasy VIII, there's this object that you need Solomon's ring, and you use 666 to summon this ultimate kind of deity.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know, right? So
Right.
dude, I don't know. I don't make this up. I'm just part of it.
Well, you also know Austin Coppock has the story about he got into astrology because of a Final Fantasy game. I think it might have been Tactics, where
Yeah.
based on
Yeah.
the the zodiac in the game, it's like maybe like a paper rock scissors type of thing, and you've got to know the zodiac to know who beats who and what order they go, and that got him into astrology. So those
Yep.
games are pretty esoteric. It's baked right
Super esoteric.
in.
But like the point is like even the people who made those games, and just like how you made your podcast, and dude, your wife has a bright future. Those are amazing coasters. Like seriously, put me down. You're welcome, but she's welcome. Put me down for a few of those. My point is this: like, it's not even about me. I don't even want this to be, like, it's just the magic is real, and we are all the people who are listening to this are all part of it. The fact that they're attracted to your flame indicates that they are part of this vibration. It's a grand universal song that is going on, and we are all notes in the symphony, and it's a beautiful thing, as you know. And it's really important that we're able to give each other nourishment, functional love, and the ability to carry on in a brave and positive manner. And so, anyways, I guess I'll call in and go ahead. No, you say something, please.
No, just cheers to that, man. I agree with you.
Yeah, well, it's because it's real, and there's no faking that ish. But so, anyways, I don't know. F all that nonsense that I just said. Those are my and your credentials, right? We met in Hollywood. Greg's like super tall. I'm like 5'8". I'm like, dude, I could giraffe you. Like, you're huge. So, anyways, like, yeah, let me tell you this. UFOs, totally, I don't know what they are, but they're absolutely real.
Mhm.
I have seen on 2 consecutive Easters, and we know that Easter is what, March, and then in April, and then in March, and then blah blah blah. Right. And don't forget that March, April is Ma, and that's when things are born. And of course, Christ is born on Easter. So that's some hidden stuff right there. But anyways, yeah, right. It's dropping it. So the point is that I saw a UFO. Right. So I saw a UFO, and it just kind of floated left, and then it went straight up. And I was like, airplanes do not do that. Airplanes do not just fly left and then go straight up. So I think what's important to realize is that UFOs and the paranormal of that nature, they may be what the Irish or the Scottish or other Celtic traditions have talked about as fairy lore, just like Joshua Cutchin has put it.
I agree with that.
So I don't want to hog the mic, but I'll finish by saying this.
Okay.
I'm glad that we were able to communicate, as we put it. I'm going to ask you a question. Expect about 3 minutes and I'll be done. Are you familiar with the band Tool?
I am.
And you've heard the band Tool's album Lateralis?
I know of it. I had a couple of friends that were Tool obsessed, so
Yeah.
I got some of the residue for sure. I know the hits.
Well, they won that Grammy for that hit. Was it Schism?
Yes.
And
Great
do
song.
you remember how they thanked the Grammy committee for Schism?
I do not.
Well, they said, thank you to Satan and thanks for my dad for doing my mom. But that's not the point. I met Alex Gray on who did the artwork for that, right?
Mhm.
And I met him on 888, basically 17 of last summer. I don't take LSD. That is just think of that. What's that? The Dos Equis guy. I don't take LSD all the time, but when I do, magical shit happens. So, and so, anyways, yeah, man, I'm eager to hear what other brothers and sisters have to say to you. But I'll finish with this. I met Alex Gray on 8/8/17, which is an 8, and basically the way it worked it out, I met this great guy with his girlfriend. His name is Mark Crystals. He gives me a tab of LSD, a sugar cube. It's my like second time taking it. He has 3 different zucchinis with him, literally like these gigantic ass organic grown zucchinis. He's like, do you want to meet Alex after he feeds me the LSD? Do you want to meet Alex Gray? I'm like, yeah, I do. So the way you approach someone like you, me, or Alex Gray, or anyone like that, you don't approach them like, oh my God, it's you. You got to just treat them like a normal ass individual, because otherwise you're polarizing it. So I just kind of walked up. I'm like, hey, what's up, dude? Blah, blah, blah. And so the reason I bring this up, and I'm leading into what I'm going to tell you. In the album Lateralis, when you rearrange it by the Fibonacci sequence, there you go. When you rearrange it by the Fibonacci sequence, you actually find a hidden album within that album, which gives a gifted guide on how human beings, without a religion, without some dogmatic kind of nonsense, can live in the world and actually be useful to helping one another mutually grow. And it's called the Holy Gift.
Really? How do you find this hidden album inside the album?
Well, so I began our conversation by mentioning one Ryan Peverly of A Culture.
Mm-hmm.
He's your equal. And he has an episode with this freaky ass mofo named Occult Fan. And it's talking about the Holy Gift. And you can listen to more of that to find out. But the answer is this. Let me finish the idea. Basically, you end up understanding that there's a humanistic way that we can live in this universe and love one another and infinitely grow based upon the ultimate architecture that is what our creation is. It's living in God's approval, if you will. It's living according, quote unquote, to God's will. But basically, yeah, you end up finding that instead of beginning with how Lateralis begins with the grudge, and ending in Fayep de Awad, which is Enochian for the voice of God. So instead of like some authoritative crap coming down on you, and this goes into multiple levels, dude. And I would love to talk to you sometime, just like chilling, no pressure, all that. Like, yeah, you know what it is. So the point is that you can actually discover that there's this entire process that we can subject ourselves to, that when we defeat the dweller at the threshold, defeat our deepest, darkest fears, spiral inwards to ourselves, we can defeat our own dark and negative actions, because all of us have them. We all have our darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Then once you defeat your, let's just say it, once you defeat yourself, then you can actually help others. You can spiral in and then you spiral out, but you can only spiral out usefully if you've defeated yourself. So
Gotcha.
my whole,
Yeah,
dude, no, that's what the magic of the album is.
very cool.
Yeah, straight
I
up.
mean,
Dude.
I knew Tool was deep, but that's pretty awesome. I did not know they had, kind of that hidden album within it.
I'll tell you this to end it.
Okay.
I took two straight up. Thank you for this time. I straight up thank you for this time. Thank you. Yeah. But the idea is that I actually have 2 degrees in cannabis from New England Grassroots Institute. And they teach you, it's one of those. And so then I was chilling, talking to a friend, like just like making it up as I go along. And I'm like, and so you take parabola, and then you take parabola, which is the trivium and the quadrivium. And then you go on to schism, which they won a Grammy for. And I was just making it up, just kind of like shooting off the whatever. And then suddenly I discovered, I'm like, oh my God, higher forces have worked through me. So I guess if I have to leave this conversation with any kind of like good lesson to learn, I would say play from your heart and know that the highest deity of all humans and beyond love you and they want you to be useful. So give them the option to play through you positively. Get rid of your negativity, get into your center, and rise through your positivity.
Bam. Cheers to that, man.
Cheers, brother.
All right, dude. Take care.
Peace out.
Peace. Right on. Very cool. Another one. And I'm looking here at the Q&A, and Joe asks if I ever found someone to interview for the Talpiot Project show I was looking for. I put that out on Twitter because the Talpiot program is Israel's advanced AI kind of thing. I want to do a show on it because it gets pretty deep about basically they've put all this money and resources into the digital space and it's very under the radar, but they've got a lot of super advanced internet-based AI. And I wanted to do a show on it, put out the call, talked to a guy who hosts a podcast called Talpiot Talk, and he just said he doesn't have the time. And I'm still looking, and it's a criticism I get. People say, why won't you ever talk about Israel? Why won't you talk about Zionism? And I will talk about it. I talk about whatever people are writing about out there that I find interesting, and any guest could bring up Zionism at any time. I guess I didn't ask him about it directly, but it's not a censored topic. I just think we've heard quite a bit about it, and it is an important component to the whole big thing. We did have a guest recently who just went down a massive list of politicians who had dual Israeli citizenship. Was that Charlie Robinson and his book, The Octopus of Global Control? I think it was. But it's free to be talked about. And I thought the Talpiot Project was a good way to get into it. I found some authors who've written books on it, but they're kind of like pro Talpiot, or not necessarily pro, but you know how someone can write a book about the military's technology and not necessarily be worried about it. And, you know, it's a sensitive thing. So you got to get someone who speaks our language with our kind of tone. And I have to invest a lot of time in finding the right person for that. But it is on the table. I have not found anyone. If you know someone who is an expert on that, send them my way, please. I would love that. And let's see, we got a lot of hands up. We got over 300 people. It is a beautiful thing. I mean, going live on YouTube obviously was the move to make, even though I hate that platform. Let's go to another hand that's up. Let's go to Zachary Franklin. Going to allow him to talk. Going to unmute this guy. Zach, what's happening?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, sweet. What's going on, man?
Hey, you share the name of a guy I got flying in to stay with me tomorrow, bright and early. So, Zach, what can I do for you?
I wish it was me. Am I too loud?
I wasn't going to say anything, but you kind of are. You're red.
All right, sorry. All right, I didn't know where to start, man. I listened to you on my mail route. I'm from Alabama.
Right on.
So I ride around playing this shit for everybody on the route to hear. Get some looks. But man, look, I was gonna start off and tell you about the house I used to grow up in that I believe was haunted.
I like it.
All right. So the first memory I had was when I was in 6th grade, I had back surgery and was laid up in the bed. Well, I woke up in the middle of the night and looked over, and it looked like just an old man standing there staring at me. And I freaked the fuck out and just covered my head with the covers. and I didn't come out until the next morning. I refused to get up. And then later, my mom used to always think she heard people walking around in our attic, to the point that she had me climb up there one day and look around, which there was nobody there. And another time when I was there by myself, my folks were at work, and I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom, and down the hall was my parents' room, and their door was wide open when I came out. And while I was standing there brushing my teeth, the door just slammed shut. And I grabbed my backpack and just walked the fuck out of the house.
That is something that I've never had anything paranormal like in my house, but I always thought to have a haunted house, or what if I just randomly signed a lease at a place and then it was haunted? Like that would scare the shit out of me to not feel safe or secure in your own home. I mean, that is a trippy thing. I knew a girl in high school and she never talked about having a haunted house. Her dad was a teacher at our school and he was one of the cool ones. And I was at her house one night and he comes down and she starts talking about this ghost. She just went and said it by name as if it was a person. And her dad just completely was like, yeah, exactly. Like just basically took it for granted that they have this ghost. And I was like, wow. I wonder how many people in my life have something like that going on and they just don't talk about it unless you're there in the room or something weird happens, like a door slams shut. But their impression was they had this ghost well defined. They had a name for it, and it was a friendly ghost, just a house companion, like a cat or something. It comes and goes, but that's trippy, man.
I think a lot of people don't talk about it. My mama had covers pulled off of her while she was sleeping before. My ex-girlfriend spent the night one night, and I was at work, and I told her a little about the house, and she didn't really believe it, but she called me the next morning while I was at work and was like, hey, I hear people talking in your house. Stay on the phone with me while I get out of here.
Wow.
But the craziest thing that happened, it was just me and my mom home. I'm in my back bedroom. She's in the kitchen, and I hear just loud glass shatter. So I go running that way to see what happened to her. And when I get to the living room, which is halfway between us, she's coming into the living room. And she said, what was that? I said, I don't know. I thought you did something. It was an empty glass sitting on our marble coffee table, and it was shattered. It looked like it exploded. There was glass all across the living room. And I cannot come up with any kind of scientific way in my head to explain that. I've heard of glass cracking, but not fucking exploding.
Whew. Yeah, man, that's a creepy one. In your own home. I mean, these things, sometimes they're like when you describe them, they sound fairly subtle, or it's easy to dismiss if you were a skeptic. I mean, a door closing, a door slamming shut, but if you're there, if you see it, the conditions, it's weird, and it's crazy.
I would love somebody to explain how glass explodes.
Right. Unless your house was going up to an extreme altitude or something without you knowing about it.
Yeah, right.
Depressurizing your house.
We moved out a couple years ago, so hopefully that's all behind me.
Hopefully, man. Well, cheers to all that. Good stories. Anything? I'm kind of trying to go maybe a little faster than I started. But
I don't want to hold you back. One more, I wanted to tell you, I know you talked about not being able to meditate, really.
I'm getting better, but yeah, it's been a struggle.
Okay, I just wanted to tell you that what works for me is on YouTube, there's videos of the crystal singing bowls. You know what I'm talking about? Where they just hit the bowl and they vibrate.
Yeah, do they go around the lip of the bowl?
Yeah, they do that too.
Yeah.
But man, I put on my headphones. If I lay there with my eyes closed, just listening to that shit, dude, you'll go to another reality. It's hard, I don't talk to many people about it because motherfuckers ain't trying to meditate.
I'm talking to hundreds of people about cats out of the bag, man.
Yeah, fuck it. I'm safe on here, right?
I think so. This is a safe space if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, I'm not gonna hold it up. Let somebody else get on it. But man, appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yes, sir.
Peace. Good guy. Good call. Yeah, I'm getting better at the meditation. Still not perfect, but what helped me is the Headspace app. Gordon recommends it in his courses, and it's just an app for Android or the iPhone, and I think it has a small fee, but it's really helped. You know, you just commit to, I'm going to do one of these every morning before I start watching YouTube updates on MMA and whatever else I happen to do. I think it's just like 10, 15 minutes and you get better at it. I also bought the Muse headset, which is something that a previous guest talked about. Man, I want to say Dean Radin. I could be off, but I believe he brought that up as a tool, and it wasn't necessarily cheap, but I'm kind of dedicated to meditating. I dropped my joint, my bad. Um, and I feel like if I can spend $100 on an Xbox, which is obviously more than that, I can spend $100 on a device to learn to meditate. And that has also helped because it plays birds chirping when it measures your brain waves in the right state for meditation. So then you're like, oh, I'm here now. And I don't know, it's helpful. It's like a training thing. But there are a couple more hands up. We're cruising with people watching now, which is pretty crazy. Pretty cool. All right. Jesus hates. I'm thinking that's an abbreviation of Wisconsin. Jesus hates Wisconsin. I don't doubt that. What else you got for me? Hey, what's happening? I just saw that you got unmuted. Are you there? Jesus hates Wisconsin. JHW. We're live. You're killing me, Smalls. I'm going to light this. Maybe you can figure it out. I'm not hearing you. This is the problem with live. Oh, he says my bad. Okay. Jesus.
Wait, you can hear this now?
Yes, I can.
Oh, shit.
HW in the house.
Kind of two things. One of them's just sort of a weird observation type deal. My wife's involved with a lot of like CPTSD, which is like complex PTSD and like child abuse support group kind of things going on.
Wow.
And a lot of people have been like spiking really hard the last few months, and it's been seem like it's getting worse. Now, I don't know if that's just because it's kind of leading into the holidays, but it seems worse in the last couple of years that she's been on these. I don't know if it has anything to do with, you know, just more cultural anxiety kind of going on, or if there has been some kind of weird, you know, they've been bringing a lot of stuff about sexual assault allegations into the news. She feels like they might be trying to push people into being in a more, you know, like a traumatized or stressed state.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wanted to put that out there to people, see if anyone can kind of decipher any kind of things going on that might be any sort of weird, I don't know, magic or just like a cultural push for something like that.
Right.
You know, because I haven't heard anything about that in any of the, you know, other podcasts or conspiracy places I listen to.
Well, I haven't heard about an uptick. This is the first I've heard of it, but it doesn't surprise me. Could be partly in relation to, you know, the time frame it's been since we sent a bunch of people overseas to war. It could possibly be just how goddamn polarizing Trump is and how that just it's everywhere in the news. You know, it's all politics all the time. Yeah, probably the Kavanaugh hearing, of course, which lasted way too long. It probably brought up things about sex abuse for certain people. No doubt. I definitely think the techniques for invoking this stuff out of people, they're getting more refined all the time. I can't necessarily pinpoint them, but we are definitely polarized. It's definitely chaotic times. I'm with you. I mean, it's good to, not good, but it's interesting to hear confirmation of what I think a lot of us suspect is just how crazy things are right now. You have a wife who works in that industry and is saying, yeah, there is an uptick. I'm not surprised, and it is pretty sad.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I've not been listening to your show for too long, maybe the last almost year or so, but
That's all
it's
right.
really been
You're not missing
like
anything.
some of the ideas that I've seen more of your show that have bring this on to thought. Maybe it's not just, people have a hard time. It's, yeah, I don't know.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit there. You
Yeah.
said more than you think it's more than people just having a rough time?
Well, and yeah, I was gonna say thanks for your show, because it brings up a lot of ideas that make me think it's maybe more than just people having a rough time. It maybe is a focused push by certain people to make people have a rougher time almost. I don't know.
I never rule it out. There's people talking about
Um,
gang stalking. There's people talking
Yeah.
about electronic harassment. I think even just these cell phones, the cell phone signals. I don't think it was the last time Gordon was on, but the time before that, when I interviewed Gordon White, I asked him a few things about, or he'd made some, I think, comment on his blog about Americans are particularly, he feels sorry for them because we're in like this constant state of mind control. And I was like, elaborate on that. What are the mechanisms? And he's like, well, you're ground zero for all the cell phone signals, all the Wi-Fi signals, the testing of all this, you're right in that soup. And he is correct in that. And maybe that is an element of why people are more on edge than ever. I think I hate to use the term triggered, but I think they're quickly triggered because everybody is just on such a stressed out fight or flight response type of, that's where they're at. They're in that kind of place. Well, cool, man. Thanks.
That's all I got. I guess I'll keep it short, but thanks
No
for
worries.
everyone. Yep.
Well, it was good to talk to you. I'm glad you enjoy the show. Jesus probably does hate Wisconsin. All right, man. Peace. Jesus got a lot of hate in his heart. There's one thing I know about that guy. Just fucking around. Can't fuck around anymore. A lot of people hang on every word that a conspiracy host says, and it's troubling. Earlier in the chat, I did see somebody get really riled up about Freemasonry and how Jesus is the Lord. Well, he is. All right. The dustiest lizard. I got to talk to that guy. He's creative. Dusty.
Can you hear me?
I can, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm all right. Having a good time. Calls have been good.
That name actually was way back in the Xbox 360 days when they had the name generator.
Dude, that's awesome. That is awesome. One of my really good friends, we still give him a hard time because he used the name generator and he got Yawning Owl. And I just thought it was so childish for a dude in college. And in matches, he would do the whole like kind of thing. And I just thought it was hilarious. But Dustiest Lizard, that makes absolute sense that would be a name picked out for you. And I love that you're still sticking with it.
I was living in the desert at the time, so it kind of fit.
Bam. Synchronicity.
First off, good to talk to you, Greg. I'm a big fan of your show.
Thank you.
I'm rather new to the whole conspiracy forte. I kind of found you surreptitiously through some other podcasts that I kind of started listening to. I think I first heard you on Grimerica.
Cool.
And then started listening and went back and listened to a bunch of your episodes and stuff, and liked what I heard, became a supporter, and it's pretty cool that you do this kind of thing. But I'll tell you what's
Hold on,
really
before you get there, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I do have to throw this out there because you mentioned Grimerica and it jogged my memory. In the latest episode, which I uploaded today, in the wrap up, I mentioned that Grimerica was banned from PayPal because they sent me a screenshot and it was just said, hey, you're a high risk and we're not doing payments with you anymore. And that's scary, man. I don't care about Twitter and Facebook and deplatforming, but if you basically flip the close sign on someone's business and say you don't make money today, I mean, that is messed up, and there should be more protocol for knowing that's going to happen to you. But I only interjected to say that good news, they're back in. I don't know if they had to file an appeal or what, but they are back in. I would also urge them to, now you can't rely on PayPal. They've shown you that they can't be trusted, and it's nice that you're back in, but you should use every waking minute to unchain yourself from that PayPal yoke. I'm sorry, Dustiest, go on.
No, you're good, man. You're good. So I'll tell you what really got me into the conspiracy stuff, and it's, I don't really get into the supernatural stuff. Maybe some of it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know. It's not what really caught my attention. But I'll tell you what really caught my attention was Sam Tripoli and his push to bring all the child sex trafficking and stuff that's going on in the world, to light. Mm-hmm. And then hearing, and at first I thought, no, this is all got to be bullshit. But man, the more I listen to, and the more I see, and the more I read, there's some dirty shit going on in this world.
Yes.
And man, it's scary. It is absolutely horrifying.
It is. And I always do struggle with individual cases. I mean, I listen to them. I'm open-minded to everything, but we've had guests even who have talked about brutal experiences in their childhood, satanic cults, all that kind of black magic, orgies, all that kind of stuff. Jay Parker would be an example of someone who's talked about it in their own personal background. And you hear, and you're just like, wow, I can't believe, like, how are you here? Like, where are your parents? Like, what's going on? But broadly speaking, it's definitely happening.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the satanic cults and all of that. That some of that stuff's a little hard for me to wrap my brain around, I think. I don't know how much of that sounds like sensationalism to me. More as, it's difficult for me to think about, leaders of our government running around in black hoods and worshiping Satan or whatever,
Yes, but I see why you could say that. Of course. I think it's more like they have some secret religion, and that's what all the naming of statues and the naming of satellites and all that kind of stuff, and moon missions, like a lot of that has got a real esoteric context. At least I feel that way. And I think it's kind of simplistic to call it Satanism. I don't really like that lens myself. I'm not a big fan of that, but some guests, that's where they put the microscope, and I let them go with it, because I do think it circles around the very stuff, like at the core, that is like the darkest of the dark. I do just think the Satanism lens is a little simplistic.
Yeah, I'm starting to, I guess my mind is starting to get a lot more open to ideas.
I do think a lot of it's just blackmail and power. Like a lot of it, like the Franklin scandal, that basically boiled down to a dude who was having these parties, bringing out increasingly deep levels of stuff throughout the night, drugs, and then late in the night, once only the real creeps are there, then you bring out the kids and you put these guys that are all messed up on coke and whatnot in these rooms with these kids. They do their thing, and then you show them the tape the next morning, and you're like, so I guess for the rest of your career, you're going to do what I say. And you do that to enough politicians. I mean, I think that's a very practical way to explain at least a big part of this pedophilia pie. I really do think that's a good chunk of it. And you don't have to bring in anything religious or spiritual, and you can account for a lot.
Now that makes a lot more sense, and would definitely line up a lot better with I guess the way I see the world. But I can't say that the way I see the world is necessarily the way that the world really is. I just know what I have experienced through my life and see it through my own lens. But
that's all you can do. We're all trying. And I love to try to find common ground or try to find a way in. I talk to all kinds of, I've always been the crazy conspiracy guy in my circle of friends. And sometimes things come up and I try to, instead of just, thrusting them into the deep end of the pool in a place where they are just going to reject it. It's like, well, let's find a way. I mean, a lot of bad stuff's going on. Let's find a way where it does fit into your worldview and we end up at the same place. It's easier to find common ground with people than to argue.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. There's probably plenty of other people out there wanting to have a conversation with you, but thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely, man. And that is just so funny that that's an Xbox name. I like it. Dustiest Lizard. Take care.
Take care.
Peace. It's funny. I like it. All right. Wow. I don't know if we're going to hit 400 people, but between what we have in Zoom and what we have on YouTube, we are getting up there. It's great. Usually live things like this, I always feel like people only get a very small fraction of their audience. And so it's always, even with a big audience, even though I feel very comfortable with the size of this audience, it's still a bit of a gamble to hop on and do something live. Somebody says directed energy weapons in California. Let's talk. If you put your hand up and you want to talk to me about that, I'd love to get into that because, THC, because of the process of production, we don't necessarily talk about yesterday's news a whole lot. And I have yet to really find a guest who wants to get deep into the directed energy weapons topic. But I mean, I've been looking into it a lot. One of the big suggestions is that if you overlay the map of where the maglev high-speed rail was supposed to go between Los Angeles, San Diego, and Las Vegas, this is the corridor in which all the fires are. And you think, well, that's a little wishy-washy because it's Southern California in general. A lot of it is desert. So if you take away the parts that are desert and you're like, well, where could dangerous fires arise? It's going to be near the cities because these are where the people live, these mansions that are burning. And so where's a maglev train going to go? It's going to connect where the people are. So, I could see some people dismissing that theory based on that. If you look, though, more so the last round of fires, but I'd see images online that all the buildings were destroyed, but there were still trees and greenery showing up untouched. And that's because people were saying it was a directed energy weapon. But to go back to the possible theory that it has to do with this high-speed rail, you're like, well, why would you do that? The reason that I've seen thrown out, the motivation I've seen, is that to do this rail, you're going to have to use an eminent domain to buy or pay off a lot of people who own land all through this area. All from LA to San Diego and out to Vegas, all through here. The government would have to shell out a lot of money to do that. And if you use directed energy weapons to damage all the property, you're clearing everything out. You're calling it a natural disaster. And these people's homes are destroyed and, they might get insurance money or something, but you drastically reduce the value of the land. I mean, this rail project's been going on a while too. And we have like yearly fires like this. I mean, eventually people are going to be like, I'm not going to pay all this kind of money for a house in California and deal with this shit. So I'm going to go somewhere else. I think that's a possibility. Also, PG&E, I'm not sure the details, but they're responsible, I believe, for maybe 2 of the fires. When you're reading conspiracy news, it's hard. You have to then go read the mainstream news to be like, okay, is someone just saying they're responsible, or has it come out on CNN that they are responsible? And you got to watch CNN to find that out. Haven't gotten that far. But let's say they are responsible. I guess I'm also reading on conspiracy forums and Reddit that it's a Rothschild-owned company. So the fact that it lines up with transportation interests. I love the history of the American transportation conspiracy and the oil conspiracy, the alcohol as fuel cover up, all that kind of stuff. Prohibition, that's what that was all about. I think that is fascinating history, and it's deep conspiracy that's off the radar that regular people can buy into because the motivation is money and control and monopolies. I love hitting people with that. But I'm not surprised that if there's a conspiracy behind these fires, it ties directly in with the transportation folks, because I don't put anything past them. I feel like they've committed a lot of crimes and whittled away a lot of options that could have served the greater good and to make them money. And of course, I want a high-speed rail, but if the Rothschilds have invested in it and they just want to get it done, and I wouldn't put it past a company like that to be doing something like clearing out all this high value land. But the only kind of caveat I see to that conspiracy is that if they're just using taxpayer dollars to buy this land, then who gives a shit? They don't care. It's not private money. At least I don't think. But there could be something there. But like, if I were to play devil's advocate against that perspective, it would be like, well, they're just using taxpayer money to pay all these assholes all the way through Santa Ana. Who cares? But maybe it's not as simple as that. Anyway, this is the guy. This is the guy who just said he wanted to talk directed energy weapons, but then he put his hand down. I was ready to go to him, but I guess I probably just said all there is to say about that. Oh no, he's back. He's back. He has the same issue about an older version, but I can get around that now. And I promoted him to a panelist. And I think he might have to say something. He might have to agree on his end. Karab, can you hear me? Holla.
Can you hear me?
Ooh, yes. You have a very poor internet connection right now, but I
Bad. Yeah. Okay, I'll move closer to my Wi-Fi. I tried to stay away from it.
Yes. So I appreciate the sacrifice.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. For you, Greg, it's okay.
Nice to have a lady calling. I
So
guess
yeah.
directed energy weapons. I don't know how much of that you heard, but is that kind of the gist of what you're hearing?
Well, I think I'm in Northern California. I'm up here in Humboldt County.
Okay.
So we're close to the northern fires. Yeah, we're close to the northern fires, and the car fire happened earlier this year up in Redding. It was actually, that fire got within an hour of my house, and they're burning everything up here. It's part of the UN Agenda 2130.
How does it play into Agenda?
And
I do hear that a lot, but what specifically about it relates to Agenda 21?
Well, they put out this biodiversity map, because they really want to get rid of all the outlying areas. They want to commit it back to, quote, nature and be like non-use areas. They want to send it back to forest.
Okay. Why do they want to do that?
So all of the areas.
Because you expect
reduction. They want to keep us, population into condensed city areas where they can completely control, monitor. Plus, it plays into the to the high-speed rail as well. Because the rail will end up eventually probably connecting. Like, I live like an hour from Eureka, and Eureka is one of those cities that they're gonna try to shove everybody into. Redding is not on that list, and they burned out the whole west side of town.
Wow. Yeah, I can see what you're saying now. Okay, now I'm seeing a motivation where if it's all about surveillance in the future, having people living amongst the redwoods, with plenty of space out there, it's hard to get surveillance on those people. Perhaps they maybe aren't condensed enough. So you burn them out, you push them towards the major hubs. I get that.
Yeah. And another thing that was kind of interesting is like where, well, I live, there's no cell phone service. We can't get service here. So it's a little harder. You're a little harder for them to surveil too. You know, you're out here in the trees. Also, another thing that was really interesting about the most recent Paradise Fire is that I was shocked with how many retirees and older people have gone there. A lot of money. A lot of people are living in generational housing. You know, they pass it down from generation to generation. It's pretty ridiculous. It's well over, I think, 1,200 people that are missing, and they found less than 100 bodies so far. And I just have a feeling that, you know, the fires this summer and this spring have been insane. You know, no fire runs 8 football fields, you know, in every minute. You know, that's just like insane. I've been doing a lot of research on this. I listened to what Deborah Tavares says. You know, she's been talking a lot. She's at stopthecrime.net. I've been listening to her for a while. And she, you know, she has some really interesting ideas incorporating the smart meters. You know, I'll tell you, they chemtrailed the shit out of us those days before. I mean, we've been like getting slammed here with tons of chemtrailing, and you know, that's dropping aluminum oxide, which is an accelerant onto everything. It's been going on. I've been documenting it for 12 years. You know, here I've lived up here in Northern California for 25 years now, and it's just crazy. The fires. I mean, honestly, I've never been scared living up here, Greg, this year. And the idea that they have these directed energy weapons, that they could just encircle a community and then kick up the harp, and they'll crank up the smart meters, and boom, it's just electricity everywhere. You know, so anything that's hooked in burns. Anything that's got computer stuff. That's why these cars are burning, you know, so quickly. I mean, I've never seen, you know, now every fire, the cars like aluminum, you know, yes. Aluminum wheels are melting, you know, and that's bullshit. That's not a forest fire.
I've seen those images, and it's crazy because if you look at some of the stuff in Judy Wood's book, you know, her 9/11 book about the prospect of directed energy weapons, the cars on the street were melted in a similar way. And it is very strange. Someone says in the chat that directed energy weapons is what John G. Trump did with Tesla's work. I mean, it's quite possible. Obviously, it's derived from from that stuff, but
it's definitely Tesla. Actually, I have I haven't spoken with you, but I'm the person who got you in touch with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And
cool. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the name, but I just wasn't quite sure where. You have the same, I think that's your email.
Yeah. And also Matt Landman.
Well, thank you for that. Matt Landman is coming back. We just talked about doing a show. It has been a minute since I really was conspiracy focused. There's been some paranormal shows. There's been some esoteric shows. But I know that we got to close the year out with some good old fashioned conspiracy. The problem is they're not responding to me as much as it's just not happening easily. And, you know, in fact, the woman you mentioned who runs Stop the Crime, she's one I've tried to reach out to, and I thought she would be an excellent guest. Some people say I don't have enough women. Some people say I'm not doing enough conspiracy. I was like, okay, here we go. She's great. But she won't respond.
Yeah, she's difficult. Yeah, she's difficult. I don't know her. I met Carrie Cassidy recently up at Dr. Miller's place, and she did an interview with her a couple weeks ago. So yeah, well, Rick, what even brought this up was that Dr. Miller was talking to me. He gave me a paper, and I guess I could probably forward it on to you. But he gave me a paper that talks about Buckmaster Fullerton's work with the fullerenes and these, what they call buckyballs, and all these different, things that containers, where they can contain things. And he is working, he's got a paper out saying that, 9/11 was one of the first trial runs of this weaponry, using these scalar weapons, using the Buckmaster Fullerton, putting things in these buckyballs and using them.
Yes.
So it was pretty interesting. Yeah.
I think the timeline works. If you are to suggest something like that was used on 9/11, the one thing that gets me is like, man, what a time to try that out. You must have been testing this on some secret island somewhere, because you had to be very confident it was going to work on such a grand scale. And I think that's what it was, but also
Oklahoma City got botched. I think they tried to do it in Oklahoma City, but I think they botched it.
Okay. I have heard that idea as well, but I only just whispers of it. It would make sense. That was in what?
Yeah.
95? Was it before then?
Yeah, 95 or 96.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was
very young.
I pretty much lost the 90s. I was on Dead Tour. So
didn't miss much. Seinfeld.
Yeah, I've been catching up on it. I've been catching up, but it's interesting. It's they try it out in different ways. I mean, I bet if we really got crazy and I'm sure people have researched it, we could find evidence of them. I mean, they have the patents. You can always follow the patent trail for this technology. And see where that leads to. And that's one of the best ways. I just I'm kind of a generalist, so I don't really go too specific on things, but I've been doing this for a while.
Right on. Yeah, I'm the same way. I feel like the real details, the smoking guns, are a lot of times outside of our grasp, but patents are one of the few paper trails that are sometimes available. I also like from Matt Landon's movie, he kind of shows all these clips of generals on TV doing these interviews talking about the prospect of weather manipulation. And then it all goes away. And I definitely think the way the timeline works is they're happy to talk about it. And then once they find the application, they're like, oh, okay, now we're going to use it for negative reasons here at home. Let's stop these interviews. Maybe it has to do with the karma thing, but I don't know. It just makes perfect sense that they would stop it. But the point is, you put those interviews in front of someone who does trust the government, some mainstream type of thinker. You're like, well, these generals are saying they can do it. So why wouldn't they be able to do weather manipulation in 2018 if we have this black and white interview from, the 50s or something?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and to go completely circle, why did they not dump water on these fires on Paradise Fire? Why have they not yet? I mean, they're just now releasing. There's been a huge amount of rain just sitting off the coast for 3 weeks. I mean, if it had come through, the Paradise Fires wouldn't have happened. And they've been like I said, they've been chemtrailing every day. The big ones that, we don't get much air traffic up here. And so it's obvious, Matt discovered his stuff when he was up here. So it's kind of one of those things.
I'm happy to get into this with Matt for sure. I think it's definitely going to be a component of that show. It has to be, because I want to talk about it. And there's just not a lot of people, at least in this circle that I'm looking at, who really have that as their main repertoire, but it will be in Matt's, I'm sure. And absolutely, that's another point I like to make, is whether or not they, if you can't get people into the argument of they're actually causing these fires, maybe you can convince them with enough documentation that they can make it rain. And then from that perspective, you'd have to ask them, well, if they can make it rain and they're not doing that, they might as well have started the fires,
It's
more people with that argument, because a lot of people don't want to believe that there's something active. But if you can convince them that they have the technology to fix it and aren't using it, that's just the same. So sometimes I reach people.
There's hundreds of people died in this Paradise Fire. I mean, we're never going to know how many people died. You know what I mean? And you could even go if you wanted to go really far into it, Carrie Cassidy has whistleblowers that suggest it's to cover up the fires were basically some sort of alien battle, some sort of warfare between us, our secret space program, and whatever reptilians or whatever, I mean, Redding's right there near Mount Shasta.
Indeed. Mount Shasta is a curious place. I like the prospect of it. I have not listened to any of those Project Camelot interviews recently, but that's a kind of interesting show I wouldn't mind doing. I mean, because a good show, a good THC, I think, is when you can talk about some real practical stuff where you do have some facts to back it up. And then the speculation, to use Joseph Farrell's term, gets quite high octane. And we can take that to a crazy level of, well, how far does this really go? But as long as it's based on some initial information that is verifiable to a degree, to the in the sense that it is verifiable to a conspiracy type of person, I'm happy to do that. But sometimes it's just
Welcome to my world.
Indeed. Hey, thanks for calling. Thanks for putting me in touch with those great guests. Maybe we should do that more often. You obviously have a really good barometer, and you've helped me out twice in the past, which I very much appreciate. There's nothing worse than knowing you can have a great somebody and not being able to get them to commit to doing it.
Well, I don't know. I'm traveling down to Arizona here, and I've got a place down in Yuma I go to. So I'm traveling through to spend here in a few weeks. Maybe I'll shoot you an email if I'm like in the San Diego area, if I go straight down. And anyway, yeah. And also it's funny too, because you had Clyde on the other day, and I know Ron and Clyde too.
Oh, cool.
So it's cool.
I love Ron and Clyde.
Yeah, Ron speaks very highly of you. Matter of fact, I missed a phone call from him today. I'm gonna have to call him back, but he's a great guy, so it's a small world, man.
It is. Our conspiracy world is indeed a small one, but thanks for calling. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Take care, Greg.
Take care.
No problem. Always. Peace.
That was a good one. She's great. She hooked us up with Richard Allen Miller and Matt Landman, two great previous guests. I get so many requests that I can't take them all, 5 shows a month, but if those two are on your resume for getting them on THC, I think those were top-notch shows. Top-notch. Somebody says the first Iraq war was probably a huge testing stage. Absolutely. What was I thinking? Yeah, you just do it over there. I think that's true for some of the sonic stuff they use for crowd control now. Sure, it's true for everything. All right, let's go with another. Stephen Purdy. This guy has had his hand up for a while, not a physical hand, but guess that makes it easier. Stephen. Oh. Maybe you're messing with me, but I can't even understand what this is. Sounds like Alvin and the Chipmunks. Maybe you have a bad sample rate or bit rate or something. Or maybe you're fucking. Probably fucking with me. That's cool. I don't mind someone fucking with me. I see a little bit of my 16-year-old self in them. And I probably deserve some of that from the, as karma for what I've done as a youth. Hey, the internet was new. There were no lines I crossed, any and all. Okay, benign sedation. Put his hand down right as I was going to pick him. Maybe he'll come back. And we maybe are getting close to 400 people. I know a lot of them are over there on YouTube, and I get that. It's probably a much easier place to be, but you can't call in. You can't raise your hand from YouTube, I don't think. So if you hopped over to my Facebook or my Twitter, I don't care if you follow me, but out of convenience, if you want to get into the Zoom side so that you could maybe call in, that's where you would do it. Maybe that's where that last guy was from. Maybe that's why he's fucking with me. Benign sedation. Don't do me dirty. Benign, sir.
Hey, are you there? Sorry, I'm totally new to this crap.
Hey, no, I am too. How are you? I can hear you just fine.
Awesome. Yeah, well, hey, been drinking that drink and smoking that smoke, and apologize in advance if I stumble a bit much.
It's all right. Been stumbling.
So I really enjoy the podcast, and was just wondering kind of what your best ideas would be for kind of local participation.
Good question. I'm actually, well, it depends on what you want to participate in. I've been looking at some local, like regional native type magic stuff. So it depends on what you want to look in. Are you trying to get into magic? Are you looking to get involved as an activist on the conspiracy side? What are you looking for?
Well, Mr. Gordon White pointed me in the direction of solar punk and permaculture. And, I'm here in Vermont, and we have chickens in the yard and a little acreage with a river. And certainly, trying to find that balance of ultimately working for the man, but trying to mitigate my exposure to the empire wherever possible.
Yes.
But yeah, I guess I was thinking, when it boils down to it, the way you've kind of summed up several shows talking about, getting active in your community and beating these guys with better ideas to try to succeed in this fucking rigged game that we got going on. So,
how to do that. If in your area, I would think there'd be a lot of people into like the green stuff, the retro suburbia, urban farming. I mean, you got chickens already. You're pretty far down the timeline. That's pretty awesome.
Well, the fun thing is, and now that they've kind of legalized being able to grow here, you're allowed to have a little bit as a individual and can grow a couple mature plants responsibly, but there's no legal market to sell it. So quite honestly, there've been a bunch of folks over at Heady Vermont. They're all a bunch of like Vermont secessionist stoner guys who would love to see us all kind of pitch in some nugs of what we're growing for the betterment of our communities.
Yeah.
Whether that's building out solar projects or whatever to unplug the community, or just kind of spreading the word about other good like-minded folks.
Mm-hmm. I usually use, I'm sure you've heard of Meetup. It's just one of those social platforms, but there is a surprisingly deep and rich amount of meetups that I've found about very specific types of things. And I think that could be a way to possibly get some people who maybe are further down the track in that regard. But yeah, it just seems like you're in the right spot for that. Every people, like you say, have a little bit of that mindset already. I think it's good. It's definitely a wise thing to try to get to know the people around you because you might be depending on them.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to be good friends with the neighbor next door who, has a virtual arsenal in his upstairs living room, and I, on very good terms and don't want to bother, but yeah, I mean, it's cool being in a small community that does seem to be, a fair amount of like-minded folks, but it seems like, I listened to one thing I wanted to know is, where do you get your daily information flow? Like what information sources kind of catch your attention the most?
Well, I'm definitely on Reddit quite a bit in the conspiracy community. There's a whole bunch of subcategories that aren't the main conspiracy forum, but I also check out what Joseph Farrell's putting up all the time. I subscribe to Gordon's The All Red Line, which is his
Yeah, yeah,
geopolitical
it's good. It's
analysis.
good.
Yeah, very good. I check in with previous guests like um, well, definitely Chris Knowles, but gosh, I'm drawing a blank on who I was trying to think. James Corbett. Jesus. Yeah, I check out what he's doing.
Nice.
I like to listen to Catherine Austin Fitz whenever she puts out something.
She's always on something, man.
Yes. Well, that network is kind of how I really am able to follow conventional geopolitics with the subtext of the secret space program or deep finance, that kind of thing. So I really appreciate that because I feel like I'm getting knowledge on two levels. I'm kind of abreast of just what's going on generally, as well as the subtext that we all care about.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm kind of enmeshed in the finance side of things on the daily, just, at the bottom of the totem pole of, the powers that be, but, I'm kind of forced into processing a lot of information every day and staying up on what the fuck is going on in the world.
Crazy day for the stock market, right? All 2018's been wiped away.
Yeah.
Today, the day we're talking, I saw 600 points down.
Yeah, it's been an interesting little ride there.
Do you pay attention to Martin Armstrong by chance?
Yeah, I really enjoy Gordon's commentary on Martin's work and his cycles, dude. It's too funny. Like what?
Really, it is.
10 million bucks or whatever the 100 million bucks he plowed into Socrates back in the 80s or 90s. That's spitting out these charts that are, yeah. I mean, I see all the other analysis from very top-notch institutions, and when Martin beats them all with shit that was produced decades ago, it's kind of mind-numbing, actually. Not sure what to make of that. He's amazing, though. I really want to watch that documentary. Have you seen that?
The
on Armstrong.
Isn't it called The Economist? Is it called The Economist?
Maybe.
I think it is. But I think I've seen it. But most recently, he had an interview that he charged like $8 to check out, and I did check that out, and that's very insightful. He's talking about the bond crisis, but he also talks about government confidence and how that is such a third rail. Like no one really talks about just confidence in government, but it's all confidence. Right. It's a house of cards. That's what a bank run is. You lose confidence, and everybody's like, "Well, I got to go get my money right now." And sure enough, people's worst fears come true. It isn't there. I mean, it's all confidence, and when it's on shaky footing, like it is, honestly, it just, the ice can break so quick, and it happens just like that.
There's a little documentary that some ladies at AmericanCanary.org just put out on Chris Hedges on truthdig.com or .org.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like a little 15-minute piece, but I mean, he was in the middle of like Serbia when it was falling apart, and he talks about how quickly things collapse, and it's kind of terrifying, but it's pretty interesting commentary.
Yes, I would like to do a deep finance and global finance show. I want to get back into the more practical conspiracy shows. It's just finding the right guest because everybody is so polarized right now and everybody's so Trump focused. And I don't want someone who's necessarily a Q person, but I also want someone who can speak deeply about what's going on with global finance and just the general economy, because I think it deserves some attention. It's just finding the right guest. It's
Oh
all
yeah.
because that's what I do. Is there, in fact, do you have a possible recommendation? Since Catherine
Well,
won't answer my emails, who else
you,
would be good to talk about global finance?
I do really enjoy, from a geopolitical commentary standpoint, this dude Pepe Escobar, who
Okay.
writes for Asia Times, but he started, I don't know, he did some stuff for Tom Dispatch back in the day and some other things. But
Now is his
Pepe
name
Escobar,
Pepe because of the frog?
it's just his pen name, but he is all on top of kind of, the shit that's going on in the world that actually matters, that we don't pay attention to as Americans unless, we have massive financial bets riding on it. And so, yeah, he's talking about the implications of the One Belt, One Road initiative in China and the integration of Eurasia, and
topic that should be talked about more.
Especially in light of, all of this talk about, with Armstrong and with Gordon about the shift to China 2022, it's actually, it's kind of hard to argue. There's some serious shifting. I mean, you look at gold transfers, the physical gold that's piling up in China right now is mind-blowing, and it's for a purpose.
The new Silk Road stuff, I mean, I don't know how many people out there listen to John Oliver. I think the comedy is pretty on point for what's available, although
he's good.
Very frustrating sometimes on some things that are, liberal causes. But he did a show on that new Silk Road, and he showed just their commercials for it, their public, you should know type of PSAs. And they were concerning, man. I mean, that's mainstream stuff too. And this is how the global stage is going to be reset. And we should get information on that now. We should get insight into that now. It came up a little bit, I think, when we were talking about social crediting, because you look at the things that are important to the government there, that's what's going to get rolled out potentially when they're on the top.
Yep.
Man. Yeah, I want to do a few more shows on that for sure. I'm going to try to make it a priority.
Another guy you might want to consider is, I think Gordon might have mentioned to him a time or two, but this guy, James Howard Kunstler, who's this ornery old bastard in upstate New York across the lake from me. And he's funny and insightful, but he has his moments where he's also a little cringeworthy. He's, definitely way older than us.
Good.
But
I had Miss Iserbeat on, and she had kind of that thing going on as well.
Yeah, right. I remember that.
But she's done great work, and so I'm sure this fella James has as well. I mean, I'm interested.
He definitely has a volume of work that is worth examining, and he kind of got on the map with this book series called A World Made by Hand, where he just envisions full-on like technocratic nightmare blow up, like grid goes down, shit goes back to the 1800s, and 80% of the population dies off in the first year, more or less.
Right.
So he's a pretty cheerful dude, but he brings up other social commentary points that can sometimes be pretty spot on in some ways. You got to sift through a lot, and I think Gordon kind of made remarks to that extent as well. But
I mean, there are a lot of people like that, but if I can get 2 good hours.
Well, yeah, and dude, you do the intros and quite honestly line up questions better than most, and I got to give you a lot of respect for that, because it's obvious you put a ton of time, effort, and work into your art, and I commend you for that, man.
Thank you. Yes, I try to use that intro to set them up, to know where we want to get this going and kind of define the parameters. And sometimes they go off the rails and don't give a shit what I set up, but sometimes it helps to kind of get us in the right mindset and also get us a few a few yards down the road, because sometimes I listen to podcasts and it's like, man, I've only got a 20-minute commute and you didn't get anywhere. So I like to try to use that intro to chop through all that introductory stuff and get to the meat.
Well, my wife's a former English teacher and she doesn't like podcasts, but when your intros come on, it always catches her ear. So you're definitely onto something there, man.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Good luck on your little compound there. Sounds like doing all right.
Thank you. I appreciate the time and your insight as always.
Thank you, man. Take care.
You too.
Bye. All right. That was a good call. I liked all good calls, except for that one that was like Alvin and the Chipmunks thing. Okay, Stephen Purdy. I can't remember if this is the chipmunk guy or if this is the guy that I tried to grab and then he went away. But we're gonna get him. And depending on how this goes, this might be the last one. We're coming up on 2 hours. That's good. I'm glad we made it the full distance, but I don't know how much more I got in me. Steven.
Hello.
Steven, how are you?
There we are. I'm so sorry. That is a audio latency issue on my computer. So I had to reboot the app altogether, which is why I left the chat room. So I am both the chipmunk and the guy that you missed.
No worries. Well, it's good. I'm glad we got to the bottom of it because I was like, did somebody fuck with me today? This would be the first time.
Oh man.
It's
all good. These technical glitches.
I'm, as an audio guy, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like he's got the wrong latency setting.
Yeah, but thanks to that happy accident, I found out that one of my soul sisters, Sam, is actually listening to the podcast right now, and so I just wanted to give her a shout out. I recently recommended THC to her. Her whole family is on a beautiful enlightened path. I love it.
Okay.
I had shown her, and I wanted to compliment you on 2 of your shows that you did. Your Aaron Murakami interview, I thought was really quintessential to the credibility and authenticity of alternative physics.
Thank you.
It's really good. Have you interviewed Nassim Harriman yet?
It's funny you say that. I have not. And first, shout outs to Sam and company, but I haven't had Nassim on. I've emailed him. He didn't write me back. I know he's probably in high demand, but I think I'm going to be talking to the fella who runs the Hollow Fractal subreddit, which is a very large subreddit that he built from nothing, just as an enthusiast to Nassim's work. And he started doing a few podcasts as an ambassador to Nassim's theories and stuff. And I think that's going to be as close as we can get to Nassim for now, but it's coming. It's actually on the calendar. So probably very early in January.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Cause I think Nassim is like the parallel level to Aaron. And so having you thinking about your conversations with them and sharing that with us, that's a killer unlocking for human consciousness. And the other one I thought was really good was Brooks Agnew, because I've recently been listening to a lot of TFR, and I also just recently had one of my buddies interview Brooks over on Revolution Radio. My buddy Keith AZ is a host over there. I don't know if it was his show or if it was a show called Ground Control, but he did a really good one with Brooks as well. So there's a lot of really great company going on in there.
Yeah, thank you, man. I like both those shows quite a bit. I love that Hollow Earth theory. Usually it comes down to stories and lore, but when I can get someone who can talk about it from a scientific perspective and make a good case for it, and he cited a lot of interesting data for sure, because we do not know. So, for people to be completely closed off to it is, that's their business. But I mean, it's not really based on anything other than you just want to think a different way. It's not, But anyway, yeah, I do think Brooks is spot on with a lot of that stuff. He's a great guest to make that case.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, listen, if you need help growing your podcast, from one broadcaster to another, you can come on my show anytime. I'm also a host at Rev Radio, and so we can talk about that if you want to. I'm normally known as Steve Zerloff, formerly Steve Travesty. Ghost in the Machine's my show.
Right on, right on. I think I'm familiar with Ghost in the Machine, but
yeah. You mentioned Richard Allen Miller a long time ago. I interviewed him. I got his contact because I'm friends with Solaris Blue Raven over there.
Right on. Well, cool, man. I love it. Thanks for calling. Definitely shoot me an email. We'll talk about doing
Sure.
apps.
Absolutely. Do you want to hear my UFO encounter real quick before we say goodnight?
I would love to hear that UFO encounter. Let's throw some icing on the cake.
This is the encounter that I shared with Sean David Morton that started my relationship with that dude. So on July effing 4th of 2012, talk about a numerological day, that year, I had my very first encounter that I knew was absolutely something that was either a holographic projection or just something that cannot naturally happen to a cloud. And on that night, there was this freak thunderstorm. And then I go out and I check my backyard and I look over the horizon. Literally, the thunderstorm's at the edge of my house. I have to look up, peer straight up. I'm like, wow, that's freaky. The edge of the thunderstorm's like right there. And then it's gray sky. And then there's this black triangle. It's just clouds. I'm not saying it's anything more than that's what I saw, but it was an equilateral black triangle. My mind immediately said, holy shit, that's a TR-3B. And I watched it hover and stop, docking with the thunderstorm. So there's this right angle gash coming out of the cloud, and it just stops like right there, and it docks with the thunderstorm right over my very small backyard. I don't live in Bumblefuck, Kentucky, although that's where my radio station is, and I love it there. I live in the suburbs of New York City. I live in Connecticut. This happened a night where I guarantee you nobody was paying attention because everybody was at home and sleeping at 11 o'clock at night, except for me, who was stoned watching things on YouTube and wondering where the hell that thunderstorm came from. So I reported that to MUFON. I called into Sean's show a long time ago, told him about it. And then later on, I became his producer, and now I'm me.
Wow. A UFO in the midst of a synchronicity. Man, docking with the clouds. That is a strange one. I mean, I've heard the connection between these things and thunderstorms or
in the secret space program, a lot of them just use thunderstorms to recharge their batteries. That's what they do. And they can also, they all are outfitted with Tesla coils. Sean Goutreau is a friend of mine. If you don't know his YouTube channel, Industrial Surrealism, his series, What is in Our Skies, you will never look at cloud formations the same way again. You'll never look at our skies the same way again. He proves unequivocally things that you can observe with your own eye that are anomalies in the air, which is how I knew to look where I was going to look. You should interview him if you can get a hold of him. He's hard to get a hold of.
On the name, actually, I thought perhaps it would be a good guest, a creative guest, for sure. Maybe you can help me out there. We'll talk, but
absolutely.
If you want to have me on, send me an email, and maybe we'll include that as part of that correspondence. But you didn't let us down, Stephen.
No, not at all. Oh yeah, and I'm an Uber driver, and guess what my clients listen to? They listen to THC and all the other insane things that people like us talk about. Waking up the world, hardcore. See you later, man.
See ya, man. I hope I don't damage your reviews on there. Very cool. That was a good one to go out on. I would do more. I am quite happy that we are over 300. I don't think we made it to 4. We seem to be on the waning of where we're at. I think we peaked, but beautiful thing. Going live on YouTube clearly added an element, and I got a lot more people's attention. And that's why I'm going to call it in at 2 hours, because now I'm realizing with this kind of volume, you know, you guys could keep me here all night. But hey, I am really psyched that people tuned in. I'm getting a little bit better with the Zoom program. I think this one was smoother right from the onset. I think we jumped right in, got a good call going, and they were all good calls. You know, it is something that makes me quite proud to see solidly educated audience of people. You know, Gordon's old show, his old initial podcast was called Find the Others. I know that's a term I've heard other places, but I think about that a lot. And when I get these calls, I'm nervous to do these things sometimes because you really are fully exposed here. But the calls have been great. And I do feel like I'm finding the others when people have cool things to say and they're open-minded and pretty positive. It's a beautiful thing. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I'll catch you next time. Take care.